Hello everyone, we are from Group G. Today we would like to explain construction and clause. My name is Maisala Novita, student number 195. Here I will explain what is construction. Construction is grammatical patterns associated with particular functions to emphasize certain situation. For example, we say the idea of friendship, not the friendship's idea. Because those phrases are different construction with different meaning. We say the scholars of the month, not the month scholars. We say the employee of the month, not the month employee. And thus we can say that constructions are different and have their own meaning. Firstly, there are declarative and interrogative constructions in clauses. For example, the husband bought a piano for his wife. It is declarative, stated to declare an event. And the other sentence is, did the husband buy a piano for his wife? It is interrogative to ask whether the event happened or not. However, both of those two sentences are still related. They semantically share the same lexemes, which are husband, buy, piano, and wife. They also share the same form of tense, which is past, and the word did is added to emphasize past tense. And secondly, there are constructions in which we can replace noun phrases with 5W words like what, who, where. In the sentence, someone bought a piano for his wife can be changed into interrogative by replacing the word someone into who bought a piano for his wife. Thus, we can say that we can replace the word something with that, someday with when, and so on. And then, thirdly, there is also a construction when pronoun is used to refer to noun phrases. The sentence, the husband bought a piano for his wife, can change to different construction like, he bought a piano for her. But those two sentences are not related. Why? Because remember that the sentence, he bought a piano for her can be used if only the speakers already introduce who the husband is and who the wife is. And lastly, there are short and long passive clauses construction, like the sentence, the piano is bought for his wife by the husband. In the sentence, we say the husband as the agent, right? The husband is non-phrases, but we can change it to not short passive clause by saying the piano is bought for his wife. We don't have to say the husband. Because in most writings and utterance, the agent in passive clause can be removed. And that's all for the construction and meanings. Types of construction will be explained by Matt.
Hello everyone, my name is Reza Kirana Karim, student number 176, and here I would like to explain about types of construction. So each construction is labeled differently. The labeling reflects connection among them. According to the verb, the construction that may occur is copula and copula. Copula itself stands for construction that have the verb be, while non-copula stands for constructions which have ordinary verb. More detailed explanation about copula will be explained later in other section. And then the second type of construction is declarative. There's also a construction that may have declarative type. This can occur when the structure used for making statements. Declarative construction can be active and passive. The declarative type, which is active, the example is Frank bought the piano for Jane. And for the passive, the example is the piano was bought for Jane by Frank. Declarative construction can also occur in two conditions. First, oblique object. Oblique object is a condition which the verb followed by a noun phrase and prepositional phrase. The example is Frank bought the piano for Jane. And declarative construction can also occur in double object. Double object is a condition in which the verb is followed by two noun phrases as in Frank bought Jane the piano. And then the third types of construction is interrogative. Interrogative construction is a structure used for asking questions. Interrogative construction itself is divided into two types, which are yes, no interrogative and WH interrogative. The first one, yes, no interrogative. This refers to the construction used for asking questions such as did he call, in which the answer is yes or no. The second type of interrogative construction is WH interrogatives. This type of interrogative construction is used for asking questions about participants in a situation. For instance, who called? When did he call? What did he say? Where was he when he called? Same as the declarative type, interrogative may also be oblique object and double object. For example, did Frank buy the piano for Jane? And did Frank buy Jane the piano in sequence? Next, I'm going to explain about the relationships between construction. There are two major classes in construction, which are declarative and interrogative. Which declarative construction comes as the basic form since it is the most frequent type of construction in English. Notice the examples provided. The link among the examples is not going independently from 1A to 1B and 1C. Also, to the interrogative construction in number 2. Rather, we can link from the basic declarative construction into the other declarative constructions. Then, we can link each of the declarative construction to the interrogative ones. Therefore, the path starts from 1A to 1B, from non-copula declarative active oblique object to non-copula declarative active double object. Another path goes from 1B to 2B, in which the example illustrates non-copula declarative active double object becomes double object and interrogative. Next, I'm going to explain about copula construction. So, copula construction has three different types. The first one is copula ascriptive. Then the second one is copula equative. The third one is copula locative. Look at the examples provided. The motivation of different labeling for each sentence relies on the usage of verb is, which merely links the subject noun phrase with another phrase, which in example A to adjective phrases, which in the sentence refers to very happy, and noun phrase, which in example B refers to the best student, and prepositional phrase in our democracy in example C. Ascriptive copula clauses are used to ascribe a property to an entity. In first example, happiness is ascribed to Fiona. Then, copula equative or equative copula clauses are used to state that one entity is identical with another entity. In example B, the speaker uses the say on the assumption that there are two entities, Fiona and the best student. These two entities are one and the same person. Fiona is equated to the best student. And then the third one, copula locative, is used in order to state where some entity is located. Copula clauses can be declarative or interrogative. They can also be yes, no, or WH interrogative, as in, is she coming to the party? Or, who is coming to the party? However, copula clauses cannot be passive and they don't have double object, even though they can have oblique object, such as in the sentence, this parcel is for Sarah. The next explanation will be explained by my friend.
Hello everyone, my name is Raihan Damar Kresnoadi, student number 180, and today I will be presenting about the next topic in chapter 6, clauses 1. The first point in this chapter is about clauses and sentence. Now I will explain about the first point, which is major properties of main clause. The first major property of main clause is definitive verb. A definitive verb is a verb that is marked for tense, person, and number. Tense are concerned with what tense verb the speaker uses and what time a given event is placed in. In simple terms, it is what tense the sentence or clause is used. For example, using past tense verb such as was and places a given event in the past time, or using a present time verb such as is and places a given event in the present time. The second definitive verb that is marked is person. The person is concerned with whether or not an action is assigned to the speaker, such as in this example, I am listening, which is for the first speaker, or is it assigned to the hearer, such as in this example, you are listening, which is the second person, and whether it is assigned to someone other than the speaker or the hearer, such as he or she is listening, which is the third person. And then the next definitive verb that is marked for is for number, which is whether the speaker or writer refers to one person or more. If it refers to one person, it is singular. So for example, she is listening. Or if it is assigned to more than one person, such as plural, which is they are listening. The second property is definitive verb accompanied by complements and adjuncts. The third property is a main clause can be marked for aspect and can be changed. For example, Wickham was eloping with Lydia, or Wickham eloped with Lydia, which means that some parts of it can be changed. And then the fourth property is the mood, and the mood is concerned with two sets of distinction. The first set of distinction is making statements or asking questions or issuing commands. The examples are as follows. The first is making statements with the example, Wickham eloped with Lydia. The second is asking questions with the example, did Wickham elope with Lydia? And then the third distinction is issuing command, which is elope with Lydia, which is issued as a command. And then the second set of distinction is where an event is presented as possible, necessary, or a fact. And the example for an event that is presented as possible is he may have eloped with Lydia. The second is necessary, which is, for example, he must have eloped with Lydia. And the third and final one is presented as a fact, which is he did elope with Lydia. It is already a fact. And now the fifth property is allow changes of syntax to reflect change of focus or empathy. For example, never will Wickham elope with Lydia, or with Lydia will Wickham elope to London, which this means that there is a change of syntax and it reflects what focus or what empathy the sentence is directed to. And then the sixth property is to describe situations and participants in them. And the first kind is when agents are carrying out actions on patient. For example, in the sentence, Frank persuaded Jane to keep their secret. Frank is the agent and Jane, the object, is the patient. And then the second kind is to describe the circumstances such as place and time where they take place. For example, Frank Churchill was in Hartfield in June. Hartfield is the place and June is the time. And the seventh and last property is whether or not the clause, it can be the first to contribute to a discourse or spoken or written. This is because a noun phrase or a subordinate clause cannot be or rarely is the first to contribute to a discourse, whether it is spoken or written. The next part of this chapter that I will explain is about main and subordinate clauses. In this chapter, there is only an explanation surrounding compound sentence in the main and subordinate clauses section. A compound sentence is a sentence that consists of two or more clauses and is joined together by a conjunction. For example, in this sentence, you can see Captain Benwick married Louisa Hayter and Captain Wentworth married Anne Elliot. These are two main clauses that are joined together by the conjunction and the second sentence, which is Henry Crawford loves Fanny, but Fanny loved Edmund. This is another two main clauses that are joined together by the conjunction but. And in reality, the conjoined clauses are all main clauses, but subordinate clauses can also be conjoined. The next part will be explained by my friend.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Sauzan and my student number is 199. I'm going to explain the next topic, subordinate clauses. Basically, it is a clause which cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. It consists of a main clause and one or more other clauses subordinate to it. That is, the main clause is preeminent in a complex sentence and the other clauses, the subordinate clauses, are subject to certain limitations. In other words, it provides informational support to the main event of the sentence, and there are major types of subordinate clause. The first one is complement clauses, which is attached to a preceding noun, adjective, or verb. There are some type of examples from the book which maybe can get you more understand. The first one is Elizabeth regretted that she had met Wickham. So these clauses are basically called as noun clauses. Why this sentence labeled as complement clauses is because the relationship between the clauses and the verb of the main clause, Elizabeth regretted, is incomplete piece of syntax which require a modifier. Thus, that she had met Wickham is the complement and it's on the right of the verbs in the main clause. And the next example, the second example, is that Anne was in conversation with Mr. Elliot. This made Captain Wentworth. As we can see, the complement clauses occur to the left of verbs. That Anne was in conversation with Mr. Elliot. Another example is Fanny was delighted by the idea that she could subscribe to a library. Now, this last one is an example of a complement clauses which modify a noun. The sentence Fanny was delighted by the idea is actually already a complete clause that she could subscribe to a library complete or fills out the meaning of the word idea. That's why the sentence labeled as complement clause. Next is relative clauses. Relative clauses are also called adjective clauses because its function is similar to that of an adjective, which is also modify nouns. It always starts with relative pronoun, such as the WH words or that, but in English, relative clauses don't occur in the same position as adjectives, since adjectives typically precede the noun in a noun phrase, while relative clauses follow it. For example, as you can see on the screen, the gentleman who saved Mary Ann was Willoughby. As we can see, the relative clause who saved Mary Ann modifies the noun gentleman. And the second one is the book which Mary Ann was reading contained poems by Cowper. And the relative clause which Mary Ann was reading modifies the noun book. Additional information, sometimes the WH word or that can be omitted. So, for example, the book Mary Ann was reading contained poems by Cowper, so it's fine. The third one, the last one, is adverbial clauses. As its name, adverbial clauses are dependent clauses that modify or give more information about a verb. It usually classified according to their meaning. For example, adverbial clauses of reason, time, concession, manner, or condition. There are some examples here. For the first one, the reason. Because Mary Ann loved Willoughby, she refused to believe that he had deserted her. So in this sentence, because Mary Ann loved Willoughby is the adverbial clause of reason, which modifies the main clause she refused to believe that he had deserted her. The next one, time. When Fanny returned, she found Tom Bertram very ill. In this sentence, when Fanny returned is the adverbial clause of time. It basically gives another information of time in the sentence, and it modifies the main clause, she found Tom Bertram very ill. Next one is concession. Although Mr. Darcy disliked Mrs. Bennet, he married Elizabeth. Although Mr. Darcy disliked Mrs. Bennet, conveys adverbial clauses concession. And the adverbial clause modifies the main clause, he married Elizabeth. The fourth one is manner. The example is Henry changed his plan as the mood took him. So as the mood took him, describe the manner in which Henry changed his plans and modifies the main clause, Henry changed his plans. The last one is condition. The example is, if Emma had left Hartfield, Mr. Woodhouse would have been unhappy. The adverbial clause of condition, if Emma had left Hartfield, conveys the circumstances or conditions under which a particular situation would have arisen. Moving to the next topic, complementizers and subordinating conjunctions. Most of the subordinate clauses you will come across in written text are introduced by a special word, such as in the complement clauses are introduced by that, in the relative clauses are introduced by which, who, and that, and in each type of adverbial clause has its particular initial word, although, because, as, when, and if. This is also called as conjunction. And there are two types of conjunction. The first one is subordinating conjunction. For example, which, who, whom, and that, although, because, as, when, and if. And the second one is coordinating conjunction. For example, is and or but. I think that's all from me. The next explanation will be delivered by my friend. Thank you.
So my name is Brigitta Graciela and my student number is 181. So now I'm going to explain about recognizing clause. So there are rules of thumb for recognizing different types of clause. Rules of thumb is mostly based on the help of modification concept. So if you find clause that modifies another clause, it's classified as adverbial clause. And if you find a clause that modifies a noun, it's classified as relative clause or a complement clause. And if you find clause that modifies a verb, is classified as complement clause. So please note that complement clause can modify verb or a noun. So the next explanation will be delivered by my friend.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Argo Tegar, student number 178, and today I'm going to talk about main and subordinate clauses as well as clause and sentence. So this is mostly just continuing from the previous explanations by my friends. Okay, so in main and subordinate clauses, we have, of course, two main clauses and also subordinate clauses. Traditionally, subordinate clauses are viewed as clauses that are derived from main clauses that are then put into subordinate positions in sentences and also undergo some certain syntactic changes. Usually, a main clause and also the subordinate clause are connected by a complementizer. And of course, for this complementizer, as explained before, there are the WH and also that. And now, to the next one, continuing to the clauses and sentence. I'm not going to go into much detail. Mostly what I'm going to explain is the position of the clauses, of the subordinate clauses. Okay, so the first one is the verb complement clauses. In verb complement clauses, they substitute for the noun phrase with the transitive verb. So from what we can see from the example, so this is the one with the noun phrase. Sir Walter Elliot imagined the scene. And then for the one with the subordinate clause is Sir Walter Elliot imagined that he was still handsome. Okay, so that he was still handsome replaces the scene. Next one is the adverbial clauses of time. So in this section, the adverbial clauses of time replace time adverbs. And time adverbs itself can occur at the beginning or the end of the verb phrase. And as for the example, the one that precedes the sentence, when Lydia went to Brighton, she eloped with Wickham. So the main clause here is the she eloped with Wickham. And then the subordinate clause is when Lydia went to Brighton. Okay, so the one that follow the main clause, Lydia eloped with Wickham when she went to Brighton. Next one is adverbial clauses of reason. This is mostly also the same. It could either precede or follow the main. As we can see right here, the one that precedes the main clause is because the bus drivers were on strike, the commuters traveled by army lorry. The main clause in here is the commuters traveled by army lorry. And then the one that follows is the commuters traveled by army lorry because the bus drivers were on strike. It's simple enough to understand, really. Okay, on to the next one. This is the clauses of concession and condition. Okay, so previously I also noted that my friend said that there's an example about although Mr. D'Arcy disliked Mrs. Bennet, he married Elizabeth. In this example, we actually rephrased it as in spite of his dislike of Mrs. Bennet, Mr. D'Arcy married Elizabeth. The phrase in spite of is not actually a concession phrase, but the whole sentence still denotes about a concession. I think that's it from me, and then the next section will be explained by my friends. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Brigita Graciela, and I'm going to explain about more properties of subordinate clauses. So first, subordinate clauses can only be declarative syntax. Second, one type of subordinate clause that has several forms or versions is the complement clause. The third, complement clause has formal and informal form. So in the formal form, the complement clause will use the indirect question or declarative syntax, and in informal form, the complement clause will use interrogative syntax. And fourth, syntactic construction occur only in complement clause. And the last one is subordinate clause has hierarchical system. The hierarchy here is intended to be the most obvious of clause as subordinate clause. So the relative clause and adverbial clause are the most obvious subclause, whereas the complement clause is the opposite. Next presentation will be delivered by my friend.
Okay. Hi, my name is Brianya. I'm going to explain on this subject on finite and non-finite clauses. So there are two types of tenses here. The first one is finite or tense, and the second one is non-finite or tenseless. Okay, so I'm going to begin with finite clause. Okay, so there are some characteristics of this clause. The first one is it is influenced by subject, tense, and numbers. What do I mean by this? So when the subject changes or the tense changes or the numbers changes, the clause will change as well. The numbers mean the amount of the subject, whether it's singular or plural. And the second characteristic is the case of the subject is nominative. It means he, she, it, and they. Okay, so I have written an example here. I know he stole my jelly candies. So this is the case of the subject, he. I know he stole my jelly candies. So the third characteristic of the finite clause is they have their own set of participants independent of the participants in the main clause. This is one example. I heard that Alice has married her childhood idol. So the set of participants are Alice and the childhood idol. So the next characteristic is finite clause is a main clause or independent clause, but they can also take a form of subordinate or dependent clause. Here are the examples. I met the girl who visits the park every day. Or I met the girls who visit the park every day. So the subject changes and the clause changed as well. Okay, so here is the independent clause. She ate sesame this morning. So I'm going to explain the non-finite clause now. Okay, so the first characteristic is it is not influenced by subject, tense, or numbers. No matter what the subject, tense, or numbers are, the clause will not change. It will remain the same. And the second characteristic is the case of the subject is accusative. It means him, her, its, and their. The example is, I saw him stealing my jelly candies. I saw him. The next one is highly limited in grammar. What does it mean? So the first one, it excludes tenses and modal verbs. It excludes interrogative and imperative constructions. It does not allow prepositional phrase fronting or negative fronting. And the presentation of an event as possible is excluded or very rare. Here is one example. She wanted to possibly move to Canada. So this is the presentation of the event, possibly. Okay, so the last characteristic is dependent or subordinate clauses. Here is the example. I want to eat caramel pudding. It's a dependent clause because you cannot just say to eat caramel pudding. It doesn't make sense. There goes my explanation, and that's wrap up our presentation as well. Thank you.